Alright folks, welcome back to another episode of the 4-Pointer Podcast on the Home Crowd Sports Network. Kenzo here in the middle to my left, Brownie to my right, heterosexual. Hetero with us as per usual. And we're back with another 4 points. This week, what are we covering? We're covering the Pong back where he belongs, the Penrith power struggle, the no consensus number one for the first time in a long time. Couldn't think of a punny title for that one. And of course, our recap and predictions for punts for this week in round 4 in the NRL. Let's start. All right, point one, gentlemen. It's come out in the media this week that the Ponga at 6 experiment has come to an end. 2 weeks premature. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that prediction sounds pretty accurate to a certain podcast.
Some of these panel members were talking.
What was? I've got a terrible memory. Who called it? Did I call it?
I'll tell you what. Cut to a clip.
Year after his State of Origin performance, the plan is to move him to 6.
And I don't understand it. Like, he's so young in his career. I would have given it another year. He's so good at the back.
20 years old.
Why would you mess with that? Like, I just don't understand it.
Did you enjoy that, Drew?
I loved it.
But yes, as us three all predicted, and many predicted, that Ponga, the experiment of moving him to 5'8", has now come to an end. They've moved him back to fullback for the time being. Nathan Brown, head coach of the Knights, has stated. So we've had a 3-game sort of trial run of it, guys. Anyone actually impressed?
No. Like, seriously, no. It was. But we all saw it coming. Like, what's different between Nathan Brown's thinking and our thinking? Like, everyone could see it as plain as a nose on your face. It's happened like that when they moved Greg Inglis in. You know, the first time they moved Whiten in, it was the same thing again. Like, and they all struggled. Mm-hmm. So I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, give him a few seasons, let him read the game a bit better, get smarter in how things play out in front, and then put him up there. But yeah, I stick by it way too early.
I think, and this is something we rounded out in that earlier podcast, is that you're wasting some superstar years of him at fullback.
Yeah, absolutely. For a guy that was so dominant back there last year, like, it wasn't like he just came in and did pretty well and, you know, like, showed a lot of glimpses of being a smart footy player. That guy dominated. Even when he went into Origin, he still came in and just looked like he'd been playing there for years. So I never understood the move, and I'm glad that he's back there because I think it's going to make watching Newcastle a lot more interesting as well.
Yeah, throw a punch.
Yeah. So look, I've got to agree. Your best player, he's their best player, really, isn't he? Should be playing in their best position. Yeah. So they've moved him back to his best position, which is a good call. However, could they have waited a few more weeks to see how he goes and see if he progresses and he really grows into the role? Or is this them panicking and going, hey, we don't want the season to get away from us, let's put him to fullback now?
Can Nathan Brown afford to wait a few more weeks? If this team doesn't fire this year, are they looking at going, look, we've got the cattle on the paddock now? Well, maybe the problem isn't the cattle, maybe it's upstairs.
And it's an interesting one. That actually leads us to a good point. Let's explore what he has said. He said that the original experiment, which is the key term we're using right now, is supposed to go 5 weeks. He wanted to give him 5 weeks, but feels the need to push the move early after 3 weeks of it because, quite frankly, their attack isn't producing. He said they had offensive or attacking struggles and they need to address it sooner rather than later. And that led me to, of course, looking through Kalyn Ponga's 2019 stats over the first couple 3 games, and the story really tells that. Let's look at it. He's got 1 try assist, which, if you're putting that up against any 5'8" in the game, he's played 3 weeks in the NRL, that's not good enough.
Yeah.
Yes, he's got 10 tackle breaks. That's something we expect out of someone elusive like Kalyn Ponga. Now we get to the nitty-gritty. 0 tries, 0 line breaks. Did not get the line break assists, but those are anemic stats at best for someone who's supposed to be dominant in the halves.
I'd love to see those stats against his first 2 games in NRL last year, like the very first 2 games he ever played. And I think he'd be embarrassed by how different they were. So I think that tells the story.
Well, I took the liberty of pulling out some stats myself, Kenzo. Now, just to give you some perspective, now, when he's playing at 5'8", we don't expect him to be running the ball as much, obviously. But just to give you a little bit of perspective, last year he averaged 142.62 run meters per game, down to 73.07. So how many attacking opportunities are they missing out on? Yeah. That's a huge gap there.
To be fair, a lot of those, and probably to that number, that's probably a lot of kick return meters, no?
Yeah, probably. But we've seen that he's at his best when he's in open space.
He would bust through. Like, he would, every other game, if not every game, he would go on a run. Like, he'd just split them apart. So, and that's stuff that's not happening right now for the team.
And here's the thing. If you're an opponent, I'll admit, I've got these thoughts from a journalist over at Western Australia, Donnie Bell. Shout out to you, bud. If you're defending against Ponga, what are you more scared of? Him hanging on one side of the field, waiting for structured play to come his way, or him being able to pop up right, left, inside, outside, behind the rock at fullback? But right now, in his young career, and let's face it, he's still only just turned 20, maybe 21. Surely, the danger is having him be able to play the field wherever he wants.
And you've got to completely restructure your kicking game. Like, if he's out the back there, you are kicking completely different. So you're disrupting people's... If they've prepared for him to be playing at 6, so for the next 3 games, you've got actually a couple of weeks on him now because they've prepared for, all right, we're going to be kicking to Connor Watson or whoever else is going to be back there. Completely different story now, and which is going to severely disrupt probably 50% of the game.
Mm-hmm. And I think with those forwards, they've got a couple of forwards there who are happy to throw an offload. You got some long levered forwards there. And I think that probably adds another line break to your game with him being able to just freely roam towards behind the rock and see what scraps he can pick up.
Yeah, look, I think also it's going to be easier for them to blood. Don't they have a new guy playing 5'8" this week? It's not Connor Watson, is it?
All right, stat man.
I don't
Go
know.
on.
I'm just trying to... Can we look that up? Have we got an NRL team list there?
We can cut from
I think his last name starts with an M. I've never heard of him before. I could be totally
Mitchell
wrong.
Pearce.
Manu Vatawai.
Oh, Matai.
Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is maybe it's easier for them to blood a new number 6 or to get someone like Connor Watson in there and to feel his way into the position with the rest of the players being established spine positions. Danny Levi's played how many games at hooker starting for Newcastle? He's well entrenched in that team. Ponga's great at fullback, we know that already. Mitchell Pearce is one of the best halfbacks in the game. It's a lot better balanced if they have Ponga at fullback and they've got someone else in the number 6 that they can blood, because they've got that structure there already.
That's the thing, yeah. With Mitchell Pearce at 7, you probably don't need a dominating ball player at number 6. You just need a guy that knows the position and then just can come in and facilitate, especially with Ponga running out the back. So, yeah, you don't need anyone that strikes fear in the hearts of your, opposition playing at 6 if you've got Ponga at the back.
I think with your spine, generally, you get your 1, 6, 7, 9. There's one bloke who's getting carried. Your job is just not to get messed up. You don't need superstars in all those positions. One bloke can get carried. That's going to be...
Nearly. It's the last game of the round, I'm pretty sure.
That's going to be, of course, it's going to be Mason Lino.
There you go, Mason Lino. There you go, there's an M in there.
Your job isn't to be special, mate.
Big fan of the show, Lino.
Tuning in, tweeting and everything. So...
real quiet. So much insight on Mason.
So we're open and shut on the Ponga experiment. We can close
Keep
that.
him at 1. Look,
Close
just put him on buy a team sheet for the next 3 years at number 1, Kalyn Ponga. Just give him 3 years. Then he's 23, 24.
And that's when you start playing big boy
He
footy.
gets smarter, he gets bigger, starts to be able to, then turn this team around at number 6 if you need it. But,
he might make a move into the centres. I mean, you look at his frame, he could go the Josh Dugan path and the Greg Inglis path and become a centre and then just get stuck there for the rest of his career.
I think he's a more explosive ball runner than... I think that was the one thing Dugan didn't have, was just that instinct to be able to sniff. He has, Kalyn Ponga has that Billy Slater style.
He can turn
and he
the corner
goes.
real quick.
Yeah, he takes 2 steps and he's through the line.
I do genuinely believe his future is at 6, and his distant future is at 6. But there's something you get from playing fullback, where you played for a couple of years, you start knowing when I should need the ball, when I should have got the ball, when it should have gone in front of me and stuff like that. And that's something you can only really learn having in front of you. And that's when you start getting that time where from on the receiving end of it, knowing when it should have happened. That's when you can start making those considerations and moving to the guy giving that, because you've learnt that. But that's he still needs a good couple of years at the highest level to really learn that side of it.
That's it, and it's a quicker game from the reserves. You come up, it's a quicker game. There's bigger guys. The defense is much better. let him sit back and watch how it all plays out in front of him for a few years at that level, and then talk about moving him up.
But seriously, Edric Lee at 5'8".
Every week. Every week must see TV.
The guy can't catch a ball. Can't see him passing one.
All I'm hearing is my mind is telling me no.
Have you had your shots?
Penrith power struggle. We've got... Well, we had a situation where head coach left last year under the tutelage of Gus Gould, who was obviously the man in charge in the mountains down there in Sydney and Penrith. He's brought in Ivan Cleary, and that was supposed to fix things. But after a drubbing in Melbourne in recent weeks, there was already some talks about some disgruntled head office guys. If Penrith is to be successful, do one of these guys need to go, or do we see them working together? Ben, what do you think?
From what I've read today, Phil Gould is odds-on favourite to not be there by the end of the season. So, from my understanding, Phil Gould had a handshake agreement with Wayne Bennett for Wayne Bennett to come to the club. Wayne Bennett was ready to come to the Panthers, which I think would have been great for the club. I mean, they were calling it basically rugby league's greatest minds coming together, like the greatest partnership. Guys that have I believe in the past have been at odds with each other.
Are they?
I think it's been a north-south thing. I'm not sure.
Was this supposed to be like X-Men with like Magneto and Professor X?
Kind of. It is exactly that. It's exactly that. Who's Magneto? Phil Gould. Phil Gould is Magneto, right?
No, I don't know. Wayne Bennett's an angry old dude.
Yeah, which one was angrier?
Magneto, I guess. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I
They're
think
both-
they're both Magneto.
They're both pretty bad. Anyway. So
Where are we going with
Did I just derail
has
you?
anyone seen Captain Marvel yet?
Yeah, I
While
did.
we're talking about Marvel,
No.
you saw it.
I loved
You
it.
loved it.
I thought it was fun.
Apparently, Captain Marvel is the most powerful superhero in the Marvel universe. Have I heard that?
She's amongst there, but it's limited because
The only one that can destroy Thanos or something.
it'll be a key factor. The only problem is like it's something to do with energy. This ain't the right podcast.
Something to do with politics.
She tears him down emotionally.
it's a gender politics thing.
You
She has to be
got
the
a
most
small-
powerful one.
Yeah. What? For it. It looks like a baby.
Snap more
Baby
like
carrot. I don't know what you guys
So anyway, handshake agreement
with Captain Marvel.
with.
Is that right?
Let's while we're talking about movies, Pet Sematary. I'm seeing that tomorrow night. Excited about
Looks
that.
good. You know what? I haven't seen the original. And then the trailer came out for this one, and I was like, "Oh, is that what it's about?" Because that looks really cool. I just thought it was about pets in the cemetery.
I'll be honest, I've only ever seen it referenced.
Yeah, me too. But the trailer makes it like look like the.
Have you ever used a movie reference when you're talking to someone you haven't seen the movie and you haven't seen the movie? It's just
Every
like
day of my life.
it's like how many times have people like referenced Forrest Gump, especially younger people? They've never seen it before because it gets referenced so much.
True.
But I've seen Forrest Gump. Anyway, so handshake agreement between Phil Gould and Wayne Bennett. It's a done deal. Dave O'Neill, the chairman of the Penrith Panthers, goes behind his back, signs Ivan Cleary. Now, for mine, that's alarm bells straight away. That says to me that Dave O'Neill and Phil Gould don't have a good relationship.
Yeah.
If he's gone and basically pulled the trigger behind the back of the director of football or whatever he's called.
But what do you do there? Like, if you think Nathan Cleary's going to sign with West if Ivan stays there, is that a good move? I think that was what was bred out of it.
Yeah. So what the other thing that I read was that they were concerned that they were going to lose Nathan Cleary, so that's why they brought Dad to the club.
Back to the club.
Back to the
Which is
club. Sorry,
super
back
awkward.
to the club, which puts Phil Gould in I would think, if I was in his shoes, I would think in an untenable position because they haven't mended their relationship.
No, should've
according
walked.
to
I'd feel
supposedly.
horribly insecure right now.
Yeah, exactly. He was on that silly show on Channel 9. What's it called? 110% Footy or something like that. I don't know. What is
They've
it?
gone through enough of them so far.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he was talking about the fallout and what's happened. And he was very candid about it. But he definitely gave the impression that things were not good for him. They asked him, Fatty's on this show. They got Fatty doing something. Asking serious questions. Probably from a
What
teleprompter.
could possibly go wrong?
This mob and over this mob.
No,
What
fair
did you have for
income.
breakfast?
No, fair income.
Most important meal of the day.
So Fatty asked him what was going on, and he was very candid about it. And he asked him what his role was, and Phil Gould pretty much came and said, "Oh, well, this is my title. I don't exactly know what I do anymore."
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be there much longer.
He's on $1 million a year. Came out today, supposedly,
really?
allegedly. Yeah, $1 million, and that's why. Because I would have asked that question before I read that today. Why didn't you just walk as soon as Ivan Cleary came back to the club, and you were usurped?
Clearly,
$1 million a year. So I don't think he's going to walk. I think at some point they're going to have to sit him down and be like, "Hey, bud, we're going to pay you out. See you later." They have to.
He's an old man. I mean, what's Phil Gould's next job? Like, I mean, he's perfect for a director of football. And look, I think Phil Gould's worth $1 million a year.
Word on the street today that came out, and it's still very rumour and she said, that Cronulla's going to make a play for Phil Gould.
Do you think he's been out of coaching for a long time?
They tried to grab him last
as a
year.
director of coaching or as a coach?
in the exact, no, not
In
as
the
a
same role.
coach, just in the same role. Come in and look, I give Phil Gould credit because when he came into that team, they were a mismatched island of misfit toys. Really turned them around, brought some young guys through, and brought some good guys into the club to make them. At least was it 2 years ago that everyone thought Canberra and them were going to probably play in the grand final. Didn't quite work out for either of those two teams, but he put them in a position pretty bloody fast, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
He turned that club around very quick. Came in, got rid of a lot of really good players in the process, and I remember looking at it going, what is he doing? Like, what's going on? Clearly he knew what he was doing. Did a great job. I don't know if Cronulla needs that, but
I think Cronulla
good resume. Like, his...
Does he? I mean, I think Cronulla just needs a new commercial officer as far as marketing goes. But is he someone there? Does he? I mean, to do that, to get those sort of situations changed, you need a change of culture. Is he someone who can actually bring a culture change to that club? Does he bring a better star power to that club?
Maybe that's what they need. Maybe they need a guy who's respected and won't be questioned. Maybe that's it. I have no idea. But with Cronulla, maybe they're running around a little like, we own the place, we'll do what we want. If he comes in, he's got runs on the board. Are you going to argue with a guy that's got that much track record?
Do they need a culture change?
Who, Cronulla?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like Stuart Flanagan had good systems in place, very well respected by the players, almost kind of like a father figure to them. They weren't happy that he left. And I think John Morris is probably...
He didn't leave. He got booted because he was doing the wrong thing.
okay.
Several different ways.
Well, that he left the club, they weren't happy about the fact that he left the club, that he was pushed, what have you. And John Morris, I think, was working underneath him anyway, so he's probably just moved straight into that role, and that culture has kind of been kept as it is. I mean, when you hear Cronulla players interviewed, they all seem to be pretty positive, and they seem to be a tight-knit group.
Yeah. That's because they're rich from the third-party payment. Supposedly not getting...
On Flanagan, do you think we'll see him pop up in the next few years? He's a good coach.
He's obviously a good coach.
Is he though? Like, is he tarnished because of the salary cap and the drugs? Like, is he a good coach because of that? And I'm asking out of curiosity as your opinion, but is he always going to be tarred with that brush of, well, yeah, you won the comp because you were cheating the cap and you were on performance-enhancing drugs?
They haven't taken the premiership away from them, though, so...
Well, how could they possibly? Because it's their only one.
Could I have a question? I mean, sans the drug situation, what do people think about Craig Bellamy?
Same thing, but he has, since the fact, still been a consistently good coach, and really not much has changed.
I think you could probably make the same argument for Flanagan, saying, well, he hasn't proved that he's a bad coach.
They brought guys in, though. Like, that Melbourne team was born out of trying to keep your best players who you brought from Queensland Cup through.
That's true.
And keeping that team together. Whereas Cronulla went and picked a bunch of guys from other teams up.
I think the true testament to Craig Bellamy's coaching ability is that, if you look back to when he first started coaching them, which I think was... Did he take over from Chris Anderson in 2002 or 2003? Oh, no, because Chris Anderson was with the Roosters. No, Ricky Steele was the Roosters 2002. It was like 2002, 2003 he took over. Now, he had some great players there. He had Matt Alford back then. He had Scott Hill. He had some great players. But testament to Craig Bellamy's coaching ability is the fact that when he only had his big three, he had a lot of also-rans in his team, and he made each of those almost like fringe NRL players play to their absolute best ability every single week, and he won comps with those players. Yeah. I think that's a testament to Craig Bellamy's coaching ability.
Not only that, but he'd pick a guy that was playing 1 week in, 1 week out of first grade at another club, and he'd be starting in the forward pack and doing well.
Yeah.
Like really well. And then go on and sign with another team for $400,000 or $500,000.
And then be crap there.
Yeah, exactly. But that's Craig Bellamy. Craig Bellamy just has this crazy ability to just put a team on the park. It doesn't matter what their names are and just kill it. Like even this year, I thought like they've lost Slater. Cameron Smith's the last man standing. He's getting older. They're still winning. Like,
they're still going to be challenging for premierships. That Brandon Smith is a really good hooker, and he comes on. He plays with Cameron Smith at the moment. He plays at the lock position. He's great as a running forward.
But even just the way they produce guys like Cameron Munster, like out of nothing again, like this next guy in line, like it's.
Well,
just...
I mean, this is a guy who's probably got the Queensland and Australia number 6 for as many years as he wants it, as long as he doesn't drop form. That's how good he is.
It's crazy. So yeah, I don't think they're comparable at all, if I'm being completely honest. I think they're two completely different situations.
But you're saying that you don't think Flanagan's a good coach, though? Or
No, I'm saying
reparable.
I put it forward that potentially he's tarred by that, and if he's going to come back, a lot of people are going to think to that. Whereas if, Bellamy had quit based on the Storm stuff, he would maybe get another shot just because they were keeping that team together, not sort of, constructing an illegal squad of recruits and guys they already had there.
Sixer says he's back in the NRL system within the next 2 seasons.
You're on.
People want coaches.
In the NRL,
People
coaching first grade, not like some crazy like referee, head of referee.
No.
Yeah,
He'll be a head coach.
He'll probably find his pathway through a West Tigers or
He might
couple
get
of expansion teams.
an assistant coach. Yeah, that's right. The Perth bloody something.
Perth Stingrays.
Yeah.
They're 2 hours.
Salary cap shits.
They're 2 hours behind. They haven't heard the news yet. All right, point 3. Now, boys, I do a lot of driving. What do I have to do for work? I've got a lot of time in my for my day to fill with endless thoughts. And one of them was that in previous years, you've always been able to put your finger on who would be the best player in this league, hands down. Your Jonathan Thurston's, your Cameron Smiths, Darren Lockyer before that, and your Fittlers moving back behind, Andrew Johns obviously in his time. Then I was thinking, we're 3 weeks into this season here in the NRL, and I don't think you could fairly say that someone is a consensus number 1 with at least 70% of the population behind that. Am I wrong in that thought?
Facts. That's facts.
No, it's true.
Really
Seriously, like we've got a lot of guys, obviously, with a couple of guys who were in that conversation, but they're obviously starting to move towards the downward side of their career. Yeah. They're still quality, but they're just no longer in that peak period.
2 years ago, you might have said Cameron Smith.
I think even last year you could almost argue Cameron Smith.
Yeah, maybe. I think he started to get.
He's on the other side of the hill.
Yeah.
But then we've got all these young players who probably haven't quite hit their prime yet. So we've got this weird period where we got over the hill and climbing the hill, and we're in this blank area right here. So it poses the question: if we have to name someone number 1, who have you guys got in the conversation? And then let's try to consider who may be the HCS number 1 player in the NRL as of right now.
Are we going to crown someone?
I think we have to.
Is this a debate?
I think
I didn't realise it's a debate.
Well, I've just made it one.
All right. I like it.
We throw some names out there?
Go on. Hit us with number 1. Who's in the conversation?
Okay. I've got a list of half a dozen, but the 2 that are at the top of my list are Luke Keary and Luke Keary and Cameron Munster, probably at the top of my list. Then I'd throw in, I don't know, like a Sam Burgess, Tom Trbojevic, Kalyn Ponga, he's not in form yet, Michael Morgan, Cameron Smith. Those are the ones that
I've got a couple of interesting.
Talmalolo would be in there, but he's injured at the moment.
That's a name I wanted to throw.
That's my problem with this whole thing about crowning one guy is I think each week there's a greatest player on the planet in the NRL. It's just a different guy each week. And maybe that's the same guy for 3 weeks in a row if he's hit a good patch of form. But right now, I don't think there's a consistent number 1 consensus pick. And maybe that's a testament to the salary cap or even the league is or whatever. I'd put Cook from South Sydney and
I was
that
going
as
to say
well.
he's in my conversation as well.
He's a very good player.
But again, on his day, and if you'd asked me that at the start of last year, I don't even know that I'd know who he was. You know, I'd be like, oh, that guy at South Sydney just signed. So it's very up in the air at the moment. I think each week there's a different player in form that could easily say he's the best player on the...
I've got another name that I don't think you had in there. James Tedesco.
Teddy, yeah,
I think that's
definitely.
someone. I think for me, I ended up coming down to, if we're really confirmed on Cameron Smith and Cooper Cronk on the downward spiral, or past the use by date. I came down to the two fullbacks and Turbo and Teddy.
Yeah, you're not wrong. They're both great players. And who did New South Wales? Well, I think they've got to go Tedesco at fullback and probably Turbo in the centres or on the wing. But they've both got to be in that side. They're
They
both
look
great.
good this year, eh?
Turbo's
Like,
a little
they're
more
loaded.
versatile.
Yeah.
He kind of reminds me of the situation that Queensland had with Michael Morgan. Like, he'll be fine wherever you put him.
He's
He's
very
pretty
good.
damn exceptional at fullback.
He's very good. And I actually think I think Manly are going to do not too bad this year. I think they're going to surprise some people.
That's what I'd take. Do you have him making the 8?
I was about to say.
I wouldn't be surprised if they made the 8. Look, they've got that old Des feeling about the place. You know, he's finding his bearings again. You know, it's good old days. It's the club that he loves, and they've got a really good team there. It's just they haven't fired for a few years.
Heather, I'm going to have a look at the old podcast here. I'm intrigued to see what you said about Manly. I feel like there's some DCE backflip happening right about now.
He's playing well though. As
He's-
if you
Daily
look at
Sherry Evans,
Supercoach
hasn't he?
points, he's
Yeah.
doing really well. I haven't watched a Manly game, I don't think, all year. Maybe one, accidentally.
He was in the background
Come home
while I was
from the
watching
pub.
cricket.
Yeah, but
His support play last
if I
week
look
was
at his points
exceptional.
on Supercoach, he's killing it supposedly. I don't know if he's just the best player in a bad team.
Well, he scored 2 tries last week, I think.
Did he? Oh.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
2 try assists, 1 line break, and 2 line break assists. Like it was insane.
And the two tries that he scored, I think, was off support play.
Yeah.
He was just doing what he does. He does well.
That's how half should be scoring tries.
Yeah, I mean, they're a good side, but yeah, both those guys. To be honest, if I had to pick one of them, if you had to pick one, Tedesco or Tom Trbojevic in your side, who would you pick? I'd pick Tommy Turbo.
Yeah,
I've got Turbo.
because Tedesco's injured all the time as well. Like he goes 3 or 4 weeks, he's out of the squad.
Yeah, it's true.
So I think on their day, they're both one or the other. Doesn't really
I think if you
matter.
had
Flip
to
a coin.
I think if you had to start a team with one, I'm picking Turbo. He's a little
Turbo,
more
yeah.
versatile. And
Turbo's
obviously
coming off
more-
injury though. I say that.
Yeah.
that's
Sticking the
true.
boot into
That's
Tedesco,
true.
but
Also, Teddy turned his back on the Raiders, so he's a dog.
Yeah, you POS. I don't care.
I'm
Come
not
see
hurt.
about
I'm not
it.
salty.
Yeah.
He's not watching this podcast.
How good would we be with him at the back though? Like
If you
right
are, though,
now,
feel free to complain in the comments
yeah,
below.
yeah, comment Tedesco.
To be fair, I think we still wouldn't have won a premiership at this point,
No?
even with him.
Really? We went on the run the year later, didn't we? That was the year because it was him.
What year did we sign
Kevin
him
Proctor
and then not sign him?
backflipped as well. Kevin
Oh,
Proctor
that was
backflipped?
messed up. Was that the first year that Sticky came in?
Yeah, was it? Or the second year? I think, did he have a year under his belt and then he come in and, because he cleared the team out of Deadwood. Kevin Proctor, Tedesco, both backflipped. And then we went on that run with Rapana and all them boys. We would have won the comp. We would have won
Yeah,
the comp.
doesn't matter. We're going to win it next year when we get George Williams.
Gotta love that. Canberra Raiders resilience.
What about Michael Morgan? Like for mine,
I don't rate him. I
if-
wouldn't put him in that
If
combo.
everyone, for mine, if everyone's in form, my personal opinion is that Michael Morgan should be the best player in the NRL.
I must admit, Mick Morgan, that's actually a pretty fair point. Mickey Morgan, on top flight, is pretty unbeatable. I think we're just used to seeing him as the bridesmaid, no?
I don't
We're
know,
used to seeing
man.
him as second fiddle.
Other than that year where they went on a run without Thurston, I just have never been that... He's a good player. Absolutely top 50. I don't know if you'd put him in the conversation of top 10. Like, if you're going to build a team...
You don't put him in the conversation of top 10? I think Michael Morgan, in form, like he should be every week, is definitely in the top 10. I think he's top
Yeah,
5.
I can find him. I can easily find a spot for him in top 10.
Yeah, it's kind of like Anthony Milford. Like, at his...
He's not a top 10
No,
player.
but at his best, he looks like he could be the best player on the planet. And then, but it's the consistency.
Yeah, that's
It's like
exactly
that.
right. Consistency is part of
He
being
eats
the
too
best.
many lollies.
Who?
Anthony Milford.
Oh,
Does
yeah,
he?
A
Milford.
little pot belly of his. He likes the lollies.
Mate, leave him alone. If he was a rocket pop,
He
that's
look-
fine.
He looks like he looks like he takes his Broncos paycheck to the corner shop for lollies. I can see him at the counter, not even being able to reach over, just with his little pencil moustache. Oh, please,
What
sir.
is with the moustache? He looks like an extra in Aladdin. Every time I see that moustache, I just think, I've made some bad decisions in my life. That moustache is like...
Or he looks like a Mexican
worse than
labourer, is
all
what he
of them.
looks like.
Look, I'm going to put it out there. As a bloke who struggles facially, hairfully,
Get rid of it.
sometimes you just don't even realise it because it's not a thing until it's a thing.
That's not true
And then it's
at
a thing.
all. He
And
goes
then all
on
of a sudden you're like,
TV.
what about I'm on a podcast? Oops.
That is preemptive, I guarantee you. It's just...
Strategic.
Yeah.
So weird.
Can we go back to topic?
Yeah.
By the way, that's some nice little low-hanging fruit there you got about Milford.
Do we sound
I'm still
busy?
dirty. I'm still dirty. Actually, I'm not even dirty. I don't see how he would better our team at fullback now.
You know, I was dirty when he left, and now looking in retrospect, Did
you us a favour?
I'm not even mad.
I feel the same way that I feel about William Zillman. I'm like, when he left, I was upset. We've spoken about this.
Yeah.
But then he got injured all the time, and I was like,
Yeah.
well,
Blessing in
now you're the Gold
disguise.
Coast problem.
We only touched on it at the start of this conversation, but I mean, the forwards don't have a right to be possibly named up there. I think Jason Taumalolo on form. I know.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's only so much a forward can control a game, I suppose.
I think that's...
and that's the nature of the sport and the debate. But does he crack a top 5? Obviously, ignoring the.
I think
If the Cowboys win their next 3 games without him, is he that important to a team as a whole? You can cover, I think, for a forward, as dominant as he is. I think he makes your team 6 points better a game if he's on fire.
But he's not the reason why a
Yeah,
team loses.
yeah.
you
I
could
know.
say most devastating player,
Yeah. I think
most damaging player
he's a freak.
in terms of physical dominance. Definitely.
But game changing, not so much.
Burgess is the same. Like, Burgess can find the try line and really turn the team around. But it's like 10 minutes of a game. Like, he might be the spark that creates it, but the halves still have to run.
Burgess has an aura about him though,
Yeah.
and he's got that kind of folklorish thing about him, you know, that I was going to say Scott Sattler had. The other
Sam
Sattler,
Burgess goes that one. That's what I think.
All right.
the one that played for Australia, that he had. Sam Burgess has got that same aura about him.
Yeah.
You have to pick someone you're picking a rep team. Let's ignore it. Not Australia, not whatever. You're picking a rep team. Who's the first person in your slot?
Like an all-star team?
Yeah.
Like, you get the first pick out of the whole
First
NRL.
pick of the NRL.
Fantasy draft.
There you go.
First pick, I'd Cameron Smith.
So there's my point. Is he still top?
No way.
Oh,
That's
well,
just
we all
because
know
of-
how much you
that's-
feel.
that's
what you
because
feel
of
about
his-
Cameron Smith.
So I've spoken to people.
He's going to retire at the end of the year.
I've spoken to people about this before. When people talk about who's the best player to ever play rugby league, who's the best player, who's the greatest player to ever play, I think they're two different things.
Scott
so when you say
Minto.
Yeah. Minto.
We're gonna get you, Scott.
Get on the show,
Scotty
Minto.
Minto.
Get
Isn't he a
involved.
camera? He's a cameraman now.
He's
isn't
running
he?
the camera right
He's
now.
running-
He's running the camera.
He's bending down
Yeah.
so low right now to get the
Minto.
shot.
So you've got the
tall
best
bastard.
player and you've got the greatest player. Now, I think the best player to play rugby league, from what I've seen, and I haven't been around for the 100+ years of rugby league, but the best player that I've seen,
84.
Jonathan Thurston. Best player. Ability,
Yeah.
best player. Better than Joey. I don't care what anyone says. Better than Joey. Greatest player to ever play rugby league, in my opinion, Cameron Smith. When you talk about influence on the game and standing in the game, Cameron Smith is the greatest player to ever played rugby league in this country.
Is this the sort of topic where you're talking about like talent versus production?
Well, obviously, Cameron Smith is very talented too. For mine, Cameron Smith is like a...
He had the most-
Well, actually, I was going to say like a Don Bradman, but Don Bradman's probably the best batsman we've ever seen, but he had huge standing in the game too. But I think in terms of standing in the game, Cameron Smith is the greatest player to ever played, the most influential player. Jonathan Thurston is the most talented player to have ever played. That's my opinion.
It's not a bad take. I'd sort of buy that.
So
I think that Cameron Smith will run the NRL one day.
I don't think there's much doubt of that.
I think it's interesting though because I think about like the 80s, 90s, and whatnot, and what you hear about. And this is biased because we grew up in Queensland, but you hear about what Wally did to Queensland
Yeah.
Rugby League.
I think we're all a little too young to understand. The same with Artie Beetson. Like, you just never quite saw him in his prime. so you don't understand how great he was. So it's really tough unless you go back and watch those games where they're in their prime.
He
It'd
was
be
a
like trying
second
to tell
grader
a
when he
kid
played
right
Origin,
now
wasn't
about-
he?
What's that?
Arthur Beetson was a second grader for the Roosters when he played.
I don't know, but he was well
Origin.
past. By the time
Yeah.
Origin hit, he was well past. Like
Yeah.
they're talking like 7 or 8 years before that. How dominant, like a Greg Inglis. I remember when Greg Inglis came in, he was so dominant, and you were just like, this guy's never going to be not good. And you look at him now, and you think, if I'm a kid, like my brother's got my nephew, he took him to his first game last week, and if you were to show him Greg Inglis, or maybe even Greg Inglis next year, if you decided to play on. That's the greatest player that ever, played the centre position, blah, blah, blah. You'd look at him as a kid and go, really? Like, what? He doesn't really do much special. It's really tough when you don't, obviously, when you're not 84 years old and you've seen all these guys run around.
It's funny you say that, Brownie, because I remember watching the Broncos game the other night and seeing Darius Boyd with the grey hair coming in,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I remember when you just came into grade and you were a kid,
Yeah,
and you were the like new kid on the block, the hottest prospect coming out of the Brisbane system, and now you're, in rugby league terms, you are an old man.
Yeah.
You're a grandfather in rugby league terms, and it's scary because you grow up with these players, and you grow older with them, and you're just like, wow.
And I think that's
Shadow
it.
of your former self, but that's what happens. People get old. People get rugby league old.
Yeah. And that's it. I think it's really tough to judge. But not a bad take, Cameron Smith.
He could play for
Best
another 4
hooker,
years, probably.
Best hooker to ever play the position.
Best.
best hooker, easily.
Steve Walters. I love Steve Walters, but I grew up with Steve Walters.
He got jibbed from the team of the century, I
Yeah.
believe. Who got it? It was Noel Kelly got it?
Did he? I don't know.
I'm pretty sure, or was it the Queensland team of the century? There was a team that Noel Kelly got in over Steve Walters. Now, you're a little bit older. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Fucking
Not that much older, not that much
little
older.
bit of shade.
But Brownie, correct me if I'm wrong. We're a little bit younger. Not so much younger. I turned 35 March 20th. Thank you. Happy birthday to me.
45.
You don't have
That's what he says on Bumble.
You don't have a flipping clue how old
Not
you
on
are.
Bumble anymore.
45.
What?
You say things are getting pretty serious.
Where were we at? Where was I leading to?
Steve Walters.
Oh, yes, Steve Walters.
Yep.
So Steve Walters, my understanding was that he pretty much revolutionised the hooker position. And Cameron Smith, Steve Walters was his blueprint for what Cameron Smith would become, who then obviously revolutionised the hooker role again. So for mine, Steve Walters was, arguably the greatest hooker to have played the game before Cameron Smith came along. But critics believe that Noel Kelly was better than him in the Queensland team of the century. Perhaps a nostalgic decision. Who knows?
Who knows?
I know you would have seen a fair bit of Steve Walters.
And you know what? I've talked to a few players. I've been lucky enough to hang out with some guys, and they all talked highly of Steve Walters. Like, he was a player's player. When you asked them who was, how good was the Raiders? That's when I grew up, the heyday of the Raiders. And they would all first go to Steve Walters. It was obviously a team with Laurie Daly, Bradley Clyde, Ricky Stewart, all those guys, Gary Coyne. And they all started talking about Steve Walters first. So I think, in terms of league-wide, I think that guy did revolutionise the game at the number 9 position.
Steve Walters better than Kevin Walters.
Yeah.
I'm biased. I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, of course. Like...
I don't remember enough of Steve.
Do you think Kevin Walters was obviously a great player, but a bit of a passenger in some very, very good Broncos teams? He did play for the Raiders too, but
I didn't watch enough of his games I was pretty young. Let's put that out there when these guys were running around. I watched all the Raiders game. I didn't watch any Broncos games because I was like, up yours, taking all our best players.
Yeah.
You're in the comp.
Still doing it. 20 years on.
Yeah, that's right. No, shit.
TPJ.
Yeah, I think a lot of Broncos players are going to get a bit of a knock because of that exact argument. I think Darren Lockyer now has somehow slipped from the talks of the best players ever. When he retired, they were like, it's him versus Joey, it's him and Joey. You'll never see a champion greater than that. But now, with the rise of Thurston, with the rise of Smith, they're like, well, Lockyer had a championship team every year, every time he played. He, to me, is still my guy.
Well, I would have said before Cameron Smith became the Cameron Smith who he is today that Darren Lockyer was arguably the greatest player to have played in terms of stature in the game.
Word.
Because when he retired, he was the be-all and end-all. He did so many good... He revolutionised the fullback position.
Yeah.
And then Billy Slater came along, and I'm sorry, but Billy Slater is a better fullback than Darren Lockyer was. As good as Darren Lockyer was.
Different kinds of
Yeah,
fullback.
very
Yeah.
But
contrasting styles.
that's it. The new game sort of tilted towards Billy Sayers style, and that was that.
It's true. But Darren Lockyer, I don't even think is in the conversation for best 5'8" to have ever played. But that doesn't mean that he's not in the conversation for the greatest player to have ever played.
A sixer that I get through this podcast without punching you in the face.
Take that back. Take that back.
I'm going to need a second.
I just got to go outside.
Everyone's entitled to their own opinions.
It's great, we're rolling.
Flipping idiots.
We don't even need a break.
Anyway, so do we have a consensus yet?
No. Let's go back and discuss history. What are we doing?
Well, you said if you're still picking
said
someone, you're
Cameron
picking Cameron Smith. If you're
I'm picking Cameron
someone, who are you
Smith.
picking?
I guess by default I'm picking Cameron Smith.
I would potentially, I'd go between Cook and Munster just because they're young. I'm talking about dynasty. If I'm picking a team tomorrow to play for the next 5 years, I still don't think Cameron Smith's the best 20 players in the world right now. Incredible. I'm not taking anything away from his career. In the same way, Greg Inglis isn't in the top 20 anymore. It just time marches on, the league changes.
Greg Inglis is
way down. For guys who were just the best players in the world on their day,
Who looked on
everyone gets old. Like it's a fact of life. So that's why I would say Munster or Cook. Maybe Cook because that position is a little harder to fill. You can go out and find 5'8" here and there, but good hookers,
That's true.
tough to find in this league.
That's a good point. Cook's definitely in my top 3.
I like him, and you know what? As long as this year is a backup of last year.
But I mean, you wonder. I mean, Wayne Bennett teaches he asks his hookers of a very different style of game.
My concern was exactly that, and that's why I thought Andrew McCulloch will have a really good year this year because Seabolt would bring what he did with Cook up here, and he might actually have a breakout season. That's why I put him on my Supercoach team. Really concerned with what Wayne Bennett does because number 9's he's never really harboured a great number 9, has he? Like really made him a better player than he already was.
Sean Berrigan.
Barry Berrigan?
Berrigan was. I love Berrigan from his
Michael
When
Ennis.
he moved to hooker in the 2006 championship, that's what got us over the edge.
You reckon?
100%.
Sean Berrigan was a utility back who became a very good hooker.
I'll take that.
That's who Sean
But
Berrigan was.
he could have started at 7 for other clubs, and you had the luxury of putting him at 9.
Sean Berrigan could start at lock too
Yeah.
for clubs. That's how good Sean Berrigan
So I'm not
was.
sure
almost played
that's.
fullback.
I don't think that's good coaching. I think that's just having a luxury of riches, or an embarrassment of riches, and just putting a grade 7 into a number 9. That's not good coaching.
Ian Lacey.
Oh, that's
Wow, you're just looking after your mates. That's what's going on.
What I love about Brisbane is that every now and again they'll bring out a reserve grader who just becomes a cult hero.
Yeah.
They do.
You know, these guys, Ian Lacey. Jeez, was he legally? Now I think I'm using the right terminology here. Was he like in the realms of dwarfism? Like that's a little guy.
Let's bring him in and find out. Ian Lacey, everybody. That's Ben Hetherington. Where do you live?
That's straight.
You're just saying that as a guy that's 7'6".
Yeah, I think everyone's a dwarf to you.
He was a little guy.
Just can we do something?
That's right.
But could you just?
Just
I know we're
stand
gonna
up.
lose. Just stand up.
Stand up
All right,
on
I'll
camera.
just
stand up.
Stand up.
Everyone's a dwarf.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
What are you seeing there? Probably
Crotch.
Yeah, you
I
see
know.
crotch. Yeah.
And also showing how professional,
Yeah.
how professional we are, all wearing shorts under the table.
No, I'm wearing a suit. From this down.
But yeah, as long as Damien Cook, and I don't think Wayne Bennett is a very good coach, and he's not an idiot, so he's not going to dissuade him from doing this. But if he dissuades Damien Cook from running from dummy half, which is his biggest asset, then as long as he's not doing that, they're going to be fine.
Supercoach, if you have Damien Cook in your team, let us know what scores he's been doing. He was too expensive for me this year.
Really? I've got him.
Yeah, he was too pricey. I just thought, no, that's too much money. With Wayne Bennett.
He's usually
Wayne
always
Bennett
my
was
vice
the reason
captain.
I didn't took him in. I bought him cheap last year and I rode him all year. It was great. But yeah, geez, I was really nervous with Wayne Bennett coaching him this year. Which is why I went McCulloch, actually, thinking... And he's done pretty well for the price point.
What did he get me last week?
What did he score last week?
I'm just trying to bring that up.
While you're looking at that, interesting. Damien
54.
Cook I think it's fair to say we all think the best part of his game is his running game. Last year, racked up, according to totallyfootystats.com.au, 1,985 metres. I got a question for you guys. Over under. 1985 this year.
Average run rate is 90.2.
Did he miss games last year, though? Didn't he miss a few games at the end of the last year? How many games played?
Looks like he played most of them.
Okay, well, to answer that question...
12, missed 13, 14.
Does it?
Yep.
Which is average.
Are the Rabbits a better forward pack this year than they were last year?
No.
You don't think so?
Well, I think they're about the same. Playing a different style, potentially.
Yeah. I mean, the emergence of Cameron Murray, I mean, I know he was playing there last year, but he's really come into his own.
Who did they lose? They lost someone.
What's the starting forward pack? Have you got a team list there? You've got that tab open.
Oh, I can. And we can also totally cut while I do this.
Did they bring in Clint Gutherson? No, they lost Clint Gutherson. No, who'd they lose?
They never had him.
Who was the fucking guy they lost? They lost to the Roosters. He was
Crichton.
Angus
That was a
Crichton.
big loss.
Angus Crichton.
That was a big loss. But Angus Crichton was a Roosters fan growing up. So there's a bit of politics behind this, and he was like, hey, I was always going to go to the Roosters. Someone who has no integrity.
Zero integrity.
We're not cut, are we? Good.
Don't
you dare cut that out.
I will slide that in for sure.
Oh, Jeebus.
Outtakes.
It's been 5 years. I think we're due winning a premiership. All right, Uncle Nick, pull out the checkbook.
How many brown bags? You still got all these brown bags from 3 years ago?
As a Brisbane supporter, I'm just going to keep quiet. Yeah, you can open the podcast with that. Right there, that's quick.
No integrity.
To answer your question, though, the forward pack named for this week, Georgie Burgess, Damien Cook, Thomas Burgess, your front row, and in the back row, Johnny Sutton, Sam Burgess, and Cameron Murray. That's a pack.
That is class.
That's a pack.
Look, Souths can we? I know we're going to probably chop and change every week with who we think is going to win the comp until we get towards the business end of the season. But Souths, they've definitely got to be in the conversation, right? Like, I've got them right up there.
I think I had him at 2. And you laughed at me, Kenzo. I remember.
Did I?
Yeah.
Take your word for it. I laughed at you for a lot of things, though, to be fair.
Well, I take my pants off a lot.
Look, they've got the type of team that Wayne Bennett likes. He likes,
Yeah.
he likes being dominant in the middle and then just having people who can play it safe in between the 20s and then play consistent red zone footy. So yeah, I think they're totally in the conversation. If I didn't suggest otherwise, I have no idea why. Because I believe Wayne Bennett, if you look through the history books, Wayne Bennett in his first year in clubs has actually been pretty damn good.
Yeah, we said that on previous occasions, and I think that's true. He's inherited a great squad. I think he was very smart about going there as well instead of Penrith. I would almost suggest that Penrith have more expectations on them internally than the Bunnies. The Bunnies sort of could understand, all right, well, we're getting a little older. We rode that train pretty well last year. We almost made it. We don't know what this year's going to hold. Whereas Penrith's a young, hungry squad that needs that extra guy to bring that extra 10%.
Yeah.
You know what's a fun fact? We still haven't come to a consensus.
No. Tavita Totola. Best player in the game.
Clearly we failed at that little attempt there. Do you have a consensus number 1? Hit us up in the comments below. Give us a reason why. All right, our fourth and final point 4. We're talking about the punts, the good, the bad, the ugly. Mate, Drew, your 1-game winning streak came to a close.
Ugly loss. All my belief in the Cowboys.
What you got, Brownie?
I had Cowboys last week, 1-12. That turned out to be a flogging.
42-12 or something like that.
Yeah, it was close. They actually, you know what? They I think it's Sportsbet or something offer if you're 6 points up at halftime, you get paid out. And I think they were leading 10-4 at halftime. So I would have got my money back on Sportsbet.
On Sportsbet, we don't bet Sportsbet.
Don't we?
Unless, of course, Sportsbet want to do something about that.
If Sportsbet want to come holler at us,
You know,
I'm all ears.
I mean, we're not in bed with anyone specifically. I mean, we're just trying to ride the Ladbrokes bandwagon to start with.
I'm not giving myself an out on a technicality, even though I probably could if I wanted to argue.
You can't. Well, you bet on Ladbrokes anyway, so
That's
you can't
true.
get your money back from.
There you go.
Well, just to give us, before we move on too far.
Yes.
Fuck
Got
you with
very
the technicalities.
technicality.
Just to recap it, as far as our winnings are at this moment, though, that you are still in the lead, Brownie, with your big bet from a week ago, 325. Heathrow at 280 from your first opening 2 weeks.
Yep.
And, well, let's just say I'm biding my time. With
That's
a
gotta
big
be-
fat goose egg. But that's going to change this week, boys.
1
You
week
get
away.
there. You get
Yeah,
there.
no, it's 1 week away.
What
You
you
know
got?
why? Because I'm not interested in making money right now. I'm interested in making a dent. And that's why I'm taking the super sexy bet of the Melbourne Storm over the Bulldogs.
At what?
128.
Wow.
That's a paddling if you lose. You actually have to do a nudie run if that loses around the table.
Mate,
That's
I,
rough. What is that? 120? Oh my god.
mate, I will make a cool
$28
cool
profit.
$28.
You'll be on the
I'll be
board, I guess. That's actually a way to go.
Mate, I will let you bloody if Melbourne do not come good for me, I will let you. I will get my bare ass out there, and I will let either one of you boys
That's not even
to grab something out of any utensil you want out of our staff kitchen and just give it a good old slap.
Like
Sure,
Damien
fellas.
Oliver, that's shit.
Gonna be great.
Oh my god.
Are we talking about Aster
That's-
Cam?
that's views,
Aster Cam?
yeah.
I will go ask the Cam.
Alright.
Aster Cam. He's going Aster Cam.
Ask the Cam, and you can just bloody whack away.
Yeah. Great. Great.
The reality of this situation has just dawned on me, but
someone's gonna watch
we're recording.
that probably in some
Yep.
kind of weird country.
And someone's gonna offer, someone's gonna offer me a lot of money to do more.
We just got 100 grand. Offer from
This will be like that. It'll be like that. That like tickling porn, where like one guy tickles another guy, and that's all they do. They just
What?
tickle each other. They just tickle each other.
I'm like, what?
Yeah. There's
There's
something
a-
for everyone out
Rule
there.
34.
That's too much internet.
Anyways, I feel like I should have gone for something different. We're very early
That's
in this
enough
infancy.
internet for today.
Ben, save us. Change the topic. What you got?
All right, so I'm going, something I think is a very safe bet. Suliasi Vunivalu to just score a try at $1.45 anytime try scorer
We're
$1.45.
trying to give the viewers value
It is
What are you
value.
doing?
It's $1.45. That's a $45 profit.
from.
See, I have a reason to be able to pull this.
See, I'm happy to cash that in straight away. I'm happy to say, look,
To score a try is $1.40.
$1.45 to score a try anytime.
Oh, that's not a good bet
Him and Adokar are both the same. You don't think it's a good bet?
for any player. No, I mean he probably will score a try.
He
but
will
at
score,
$1.40.
$1.45.
Any player should at least be $2. $1.80.
Okay, so just to make it a little bit more interesting, I did have a backup bet. It's an anytime try scorer. Hold on, hear me out. Anytime try scorer. Felice Kafusi at $2.80.
No, mate, you've made your
First
bet.
counts.
Or
First
this
bet.
is why my bare ass is on the line,
Yeah,
mate.
that's what he's gonna We're gonna hire like the largest human I've ever seen on the planet to flog this guy.
No,
That's
you
all-
stick with your bet.
I'll stick with my bet,
First bet.
but in some kind of like
Asterisks.
alternate dimension, I've got a second bet, and because this is going to be recorded, and because Brownie's not going to cut this out,
No.
you're going to have record of me saying that Felice Kafusi is going to score a try at some point in that game, and
You can claim it after the fact, but it's not going to count.
it's not going to count,
The
but
sacred. This is.
but it will
sacred.
count for my knowledge and prowess of the analytics of.
If they both hit,
I don't
you'll maybe have some juice. We'll see.
All right, for those of us on the table who aren't going to switch their bets, Brownie, the current leader of this competition, what you got?
Just. I really, you know what? I don't even love the Roosters, but I just had to make it a little bit more juicy than what you lunatics are doing with your $1.80. I really like Latrell Mitchell to score an anytime try against the Broncos. I think I wouldn't even be surprised if he scores the first try. Let's just say that.
So
I
is
think
that the bet?
So it's
No.
a first time try scorer, is it?
anytime try scorer. I'm just asterisking like Ben Hetherington would by saying if he scores first try, I wouldn't be surprised.
So
However,
you're a
my
coward.
bet,
You're a coward.
All these
You're not
bloody
willing to-
disclaimers.
You're not willing to go on the first try score.
exclamation point. Anyway, my bet at $2.87. Latrell Mitchell, anytime try scorer into the Roosters at $1.55. Total $2.87. I honestly don't know that the Roosters are going to dominate that game and win by a lot, but I like Latrell Mitchell.
So is that the first multi we've had? And now?
You had a multi, didn't you? Oh no, you had two
No,
guys.
it was one bet. That was
I didn't know that we were allowed to multi.
We can multi.
Really?
whatever we want, baby.
It saves us from
Okay.
a lifestyle of
Alright.
$100, $40.
You're all in trouble now.
40 cents riding.
It's
on this
$1.28 and a.
So we
Bloody
can we
arse
multi
job.
other sports into it?
No. Well,
Or else I'm going.
only arse slapping. Filipino arse slapping.
So it's a very popular sport in Manila right
it's
here.
taken off.
Oh, do you want to see my bare ass on screen next episode? Let us know in the comments below. Also, let us know of what punter you have.
See
Clearly,
it again.
this side of the table, we've played a very safe this week. A much healthier bet on that side. And if you've got any thoughts of any of the other topics we've covered tonight, Kalyn Ponga or any of the Penrith struggles, let us know. Hit us up. Call us idiots if you need be. But if you like what you're seeing, check us out. We've got another episode coming out next week, and be sure to check out the rest of our content on Homeground Sports. Catch you next week.
The 2007 Canberra Raiders squad was so full of unknowns, police often used their players in lineups and undercover sting operations in the ACT area. I'm Bert Concord, and this has been Fake Footy Facts.